Welcome back. Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our Twitter account, and we are reactivating this Twitter account. The one we use to tweet information in English is at Mexico Daily. Very useful Twitter account, especially now because I'm going to be providing more updates throughout the week with breaking news. And I'm going to use that Twitter account to be able to provide you information about what's happening in Mexico in English. And I also, of course, have my Twitter account I use in when I tweet everything that I do and all my comments and Spanish content and TV shows. And this is the best place to go if you want to follow me regarding all the other TV shows and radio shows that I do in Spanish at AM Salazar. So as of this weekend, we will be 1 year away. 1 year away when the biggest elections process is going to be taking place in Mexico. It's quite extraordinary to think that we're only 1 year away for when Mexico will elect a new president. And of course, although this weekend we do have elections in the state of Coahuila and in the state of Mexico, and we will be following the results of these elections, especially for the governorship. But it's as of this weekend that pretty much most analysts think that the electoral process, the campaign process to decide who will be Mexico's next president starts. Since we're 1 year away, joining us is Carlos Ramirez. You know him well. He's from Integralia. And am I right to say that as of this weekend, the real electoral process campaigning to decide who's going to be Mexico's next president starts this weekend? Welcome to the show, Carlos.
Thank you, Ana Maria, for having me. Definitely. Sunday at, let's say, 10 o'clock at night is a moment where it will be the starting point of a long year process to elect Mexico's new president on June 2nd, 2024. And why are we saying that this is the critical moment or the starting point? Because after what happens in the state of Mexico in Coahuila elections, a series of events will start gathering pace in the next coming days and weeks. And we will start talking every day more about what is going to happen during the next 12 months. So yes, this is the starting point. And I would raise probably on Monday, after having the results in both states, we have to follow very closely what will happen with the Morena candidates and with the opposition party candidates as they will start talking about the presidential election of June next year.
Why are they waiting? I mean, and I ask you this question, and the answer may be obvious, but they already have been. When we look at the Morena candidates, the ones that the president has identified, which is Claudia Sheinbaum, Marcelo Ebrard, Ricardo Monreal, and who am I missing? Oh, Adán Augusto Lopez. I mean, these are the candidates that the president has identified. He's mentioned, I think, Noroña maybe, but not really. And they have literally been campaigning, even though the electoral laws pretty much says that you really shouldn't be campaigning, especially if you're in office. So my question for you is, will we know pretty much or very soon when these candidates are going to step down, or are they going to step down from their cabinet positions?
Actually, that's the first delicate event that we will be starting to see after Monday. Marcelo Ebrard, one of the potential candidates of the governing party Morena, has already anticipated that on Monday he will publish what he thinks should be the process of electing the nominee of Morena, right? And we can already anticipate that he will say something that the leadership at the party, Delgado, and even the president, and even Claudia Sheinbaum, will not like very much. So
Mhm.
that is the reason why they've been waiting, and that is the reason why we don't know when will they step down, because each one has a different vision on how will the process be conducted. Ebrard wants a more open process, sort of a primary process similar to the US, while Sheinbaum wants a poll, a normal poll or a couple of polls that show who is a leading potential candidate.
Mhm.
So there is a dispute within the party of what process to follow. And then if we go to the opposition, things are even worse there, because there are 13 interested potential candidates of the opposition parties, and they still don't know how they will select the presidential nominee. And clearly these are three parties: PRI, PAN, PRD. Each one has different interests, different potential candidates. So yeah, there's still a lot that is likely to happen, a lot that we don't know yet, but we will start getting more information starting on Monday.
Now, just remind us, what does the electoral law state in terms of when, if if you are a cabinet member, or if you are a public, a government official, or you are in some position, or you in some position of power, like Claudia Sheinbaum, she's the mayor of Mexico City. When do they, by law, need to step down?
So the law in Mexico is very restrictive. The electoral law is very restrictive. This is a consequence of many decades of, events in the electoral process. So on September, the National Electoral Institute formally starts the process of the presidential election on September. Then it will be a couple of months in which the parties will have to select their candidates. So it's around September, by mid-September, or probably by the end of September, when anyone in office should step down if they want to be a candidate of one of the parties. But that is in theory, Ana, because the most likely scenario is that we are going to see, for example, in the case of Morena, we're going to see Marcelo Ebrard stepping down earlier, and Claudia Sheinbaum waiting until the last day she can remain in office. That's part of the dispute within that party. They have different visions on how this should be conducted. Ebrard wants everyone to step down now, next week. Sheinbaum doesn't want that because she has an advantage of remaining in Mexico City. So yeah, but it's approximately by the end of September, in theory. Probably will happen before that.
That's interesting, because at the end of the day, what they have been doing up until now, openly campaigning, is illegal, right?
Illegal, yeah, absolutely. Illegal, yes.
Especially since they're in office. But even if they weren't in office, it would still be illegal, or not?
Yeah, of course, it is illegal. Even though they are in office or not, it would be legal to campaign at this stage. It's too early. The process hasn't started yet. The National Electoral Institute hasn't started the process formally. So clearly it is illegal, what we've been seeing during the past months. But that's the problem with what we've seen so far. Morena is not very, it's violating the law without a major problem with that, right? So that's likely to continue to be the case.
So let me ask you this question. What happens now in terms of this internal process? Clearly there's going to be a clash, between the candidates. And ultimately, perception is that Andres Manuel is going to ultimately decide who the candidate is. There's a sense that the polls that Morena will use and has used for these these primaries or the process by which they select candidates, it's perceived to be quite flawed in the sense because it always reflects the interest either of the party or of President Andrés Manuel Lopez Obrador. So I mean, do you get the sense that if someone like Marcelo Ebrard is not the candidate, that he will step away? Will there be, I mean, such frictions within Morena that it could actually damage the whomever becomes the candidate for Morena? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it seems that what's interesting of the process right now is not what's happening with the opposition. It's just watching this battle royale within Morena, and everybody's trying to figure out who's going to be the last one standing.
Yeah, which is by the way, I absolutely agree with that. Which is, by the way, something that in some sort of way it's intentional, because it's helping Morena's candidates to become better known. Clearly, in the very early polls, this has opened an enormous gap between Morena and the opposition parties, because everyone is talking only about Morena. No one is talking about the opposition. But let me talk a little bit about some signposts in each of the processes, one in the official party, Morena, in the governing party, and then on the opposition, Morena. So there, as you mentioned, there are 3 potential nominees. I would take out Monreal. Really, he has no chance. Really, the only 3 that remain are Sheinbaum, the mayor of Mexico City, the Minister of Interior, Adán Augusto Lopez, and Marcelo Ebrard, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So here, the first signpost is, what will Ebrard do in the next coming weeks? Will he step down? How serious will be his proposal to select candidates be? What happens if he is rejected? His process, the potential process that he's proposing will be rejected. Will he break down? And what will Sheinbaum do after Ebrard publishes this proposal? What will Delgado, the leader of the party, do also? Because it will put him in a very uncomfortable position. My sense, Ana Maria, is that at the end of the day, Ebrard will not be happy with the process that will be chosen. It will be a poll. And at the end of the day, Ebrard will not break with the party. That's my best sense about how we see things at Integralia. Ebrard, for different reasons, I will not go into that. Different reasons, I think he will remain in the party. He has a lot to lose if he breaks. But obviously, there's always a possibility that if he's not selected, he could end up breaking and go to Movimiento Ciudadano and become there a candidate in which he can attract the rest of the opposition. That's unlikely. That's unlikely, I would say. Now, on the other side, the key signpost, I think it's going to be, first, they need a method of choosing the nominee, which is challenging considering there's 13 interested. Second is going to be,
I think there's more than 13. I mean, I've counted like 17, or, I mean, some of them are least serious than others, but, a lot of them, like even the president of the PRI, Lito, was saying he wants to be a candidate. It's hard to take that seriously, right?
Yeah, right. There's some other names around, but let's say 13 are the ones that have been already expressed their intention clearly to become the candidate. So the method is the first sample. Now, even before that, the electoral result in the state of Mexico is going to be very important for the electoral future of the opposition coalition, because it is very likely that the PRI will lose the state of Mexico. That's potentially the likeliest scenario. And if the PRI loses the state of Mexico, it will weaken within the opposition coalition, which will make it more difficult for the coalition to remain together and then to choose through a process, again, that we still don't know and no one has a clue on how they will choose it, the nominee. So I would say those two are the key signposts. What happens in the state of Mexico? What reaction does the PRI have if they lose? And then what happens with the method of selecting one of the 13 candidates that are already in place. And how fast they do it. How fast they do it, Ana Maria. Sorry, because time is running up for the opposition. They need to have a candidate very early in order to start gaining ground and certainly to close up with the enormous gap that right now Morena, the advantage that Morena has in the early presidential polls.
Now, let's talk very briefly before, because we're running out of time, about the other positions, the other elections that are going to be taking place in a year, which has to do with Congress, the Senate. There's a number of governors governorships that are in play, local governments. I mean, is there any sense that the opposition is at least paying attention or trying to figure out what they're going to do with those candidacies? Or basically it all depends on who becomes a presidential candidate, which will define who are the candidates down the line. By the way, that seems to be the situation with Morena. I mean, they literally can't do anything until they figure out who the presidential candidate's going to be.
Yeah. So yeah, 9 states, including Mexico City, 30 state legislatures, 128 senators, 500 deputies, so and thousands of municipalities. So this is a huge election. It's not only the presidential election. And I would say that in some sense, it is more important for the future of the Mexican economy and the future of Mexico's democracy, what happens in Congress, than really what happens in the presidency. Okay, right. So it is very important to have an eye on what's going to happen there, not only with the presidency. So yes, you are totally right. I think in terms of Morena, they still have to wait until they have the nominee. That's why they want to speed up the process, because that will open the door next to start bringing the list of potential candidates in the states and in the legislatures. On the opposition side, it's even more complicated because there's 3 parties. Each party wants obviously, each party wants its own guys in Congress, in being the candidates at the state level. I think they have they are perfectly clear. The 3 parties know that it is not only the presidency. They have been working the past month certainly to try to find out a way also to what party puts who in what governorship, and who is going to choose the list of senators, deputies. They've been working on that, but it's going to be a very complex process because they still don't know who will be its nominee. But more importantly, let's see if the coalition survives. So far, what they've said is that they want to go together, but many things could happen in the next coming months.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's why I want to make sure you keep on joining us with certain regularity so we can start doing the countdown towards the elections next year. It's June 4th, correct? Is that the date?
June 2nd is today in a year.
June 2nd.
Yes.
So exactly 1 year away from, we're 1 year away from the biggest elections that will be taking place in Mexico, and clearly could potentially define Mexico's democracy. I really appreciate you joining us, Carlos Ramirez. He's from Integralia. He's been joining us, and I just hope you keep on joining us with certain frequency so you can give us updates as to how this process to select the new president of Mexico is taking place. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ana Maria, for having us.
Thank you. And we're going to go to commercial break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and I want to thank you for joining us and listening to us and watching.